Hello fellow Hearts of the Blue, and welcome to my channel, and also welcome to another episode of Heavy Contrast, a series where I try to paint one miniature to the highest level possible using just contrast paints and highlights. And in this episode I'm very excited because at last I get to paint one of the miniatures I've been most excited about in this year, and this is the new Necron Warriors. And before we start, I want to give a very huge thank you to my two Patreons, Edward Mitchell and Kiara Nomurthail, for sending me Necron minis to paint in the channel. So thank you very much guys, and let's get cracking. So as you can see, I have my Necron Warrior here, and he was base coated using lead belcher spray, but I made a mistake, and I could have easily re-sprayed this with the actual color that I wanted, but I thought it was a good chance to show you that we all make mistakes. Mine was one of judgment. This time, of course, I made mistakes all the time. I didn't remember how dark lead belcher spray is, and it's a very bright metallic as a base coat, and I thought lead belcher was a bit brighter than it is. And the actual color that I suggest you use if you're going to follow this guide is starting from Mechanicus Standard Grey and not lead belcher. So spray your Necron Warrior with Mechanicus Standard Grey and you will actually skip this step. I'm going to take Mechanicus Standard Grey and I'm going to paint all the inner mechanical bits, that is all the actual mechanical stuff that is underneath the armor. All the mechanical bits of our Necron are now base coated with Mechanicus Standard Grey, and I'm going to apply a layer of black Templar over all those details. Again, don't worry too much about painting the other bits that are not black with this, because we will go over all those details later on, so you can really concentrate on going into all the nooks and crannies of our Necron Warrior, so you don't leave anything grey showing. Our layer of black Templar is now completely dry, and I'm going to highlight all those black details using Downstone. I'm just going to take Downstone and do a very thin edge highlight on all the black details. Try to be as thin as possible here. We just want to pick up the basic shapes of the underlying skeleton. Now is the time to also highlight his gun casing. With that highlight done, I'm going to move into the next one. This is Administratum Grey, and I will just basically do the same thin edge highlight, but I will concentrate it more towards the corners of each of the black surfaces. So, for example, here and there on top of these cylindrical bits. With that highlight done, I'm going to move into the last highlight for the black details. This is Ruthuan Grey, and I will just do very small dots in just the corners and most prominent areas. For example, here, here, here. Keep these dots as small as you can make them. The smallest you can do them, the better they will look. And with all our black details finished, I'm going to start base coating all the armor panels. For this I'm going to use Ironbreaker. And as you can see, the difference is quite substantial from the lead belcher, and I want this much brighter base coat. At this moment I will avoid painting his head and his back, shoulder pieces of armor, because those will be lighter and will be base coated with a different color later on. As you can see, we now have our layer of Ironbreaker completely done, and I'm going to shade all those metal details. Remember, we didn't base coat his face or his shoulder armor, and I'm going to use Guilliman flesh for this. I'm just going to apply a solid layer of Guilliman flesh over all the main armor details. As always with contrast paints, work in sections and be sure you have completed section before moving on into the next one. Don't hurry up, don't try to do too much at once, just concentrate in leaving the area you're doing at the moment as good as possible. While our layer of Guilliman flesh dries on the main armor, I'm going to base coat his face mask and his shoulder trim on his shoulder armor using CANOPTEK alloy. And this will provide a very nice color variation and also a very shiny and beautiful metallic look on his face, which will help draw attention there, which is what we want, of course. With our first layer of Guilliman flesh now dry on his armor, I'm now taking a 50-50 mix of Guilliman flesh and contrast medium, and I'm going to apply a glaze towards the lower parts of each panel to increase the level of shadow on those bits. Just like that. Same thing here. Move your brush from the upper sides into the lower parts. That will keep the glaze under control and no tide marks showing. Be very deliberate with where you place your paint. This is not an all over layer, this is very concentrated and deliberate placement of wash. And now I'm going to take that same mix of Guilliman flesh and medium, this is 1 part Guilliman flesh and 1 part contrast medium, and I will use it to shade his face and shoulder pads. Apply it and absorb any excess. I want this to be very light. And now I'm going to take Fire Slayer flesh. I'm going to thin it down to a glazed consistency. You can see how thin that is there. And now I'm going to apply this into the lower sections of the main armor. Again, I'm just reinforcing more and more that shadow underneath. Just take less area, you can glaze that down and increase that darkness until you are happy with it. With that last shading done, I'm going to go back into CANOPTEK alloy and I'm going to do an edge highlight over the main parts of the armor. And over all the brighter parts of like his face mask and the shoulder parts, I'm going to just layer this over almost all the details. I'm just leaving a bit of the Guilliman flesh showing in the shadows, but I'm going to layer this almost over all the rest of the detail. And with that highlight done, I'm going to move into STORMHOST Silver and I'm going to do the very last highlight on our metal armor. This will be a full edge highlight on the brighter sections, like here. And also a thinner, smaller edge highlight following the previous one with CANOPTEK alloy on the rest of the armor panels. So we are now back, and off camera I rebase coated all the steel details on his weapon using lead belcher again. And now I'm going to wash them. For this I'm going to use a mix of 1 part Black Templar and 3 parts contrast medium. This is a very simple step. Just apply this wash all over the metal details. While that wash of black tempera dries, I'm now going to apply white into all the glowing bits, and this is how I like to do it, so it's easier. I like to start with a grey color that covers really well. In this case I'm using Corax White, and I'm just going to apply Corax White first, and once this Corax White dries, I will move into pure white. Apply this into all the areas that you want to be bright green. I'm still working on base coating all my white details, but while I'm working on it, the black wash is now dry and I can highlight all the steel details. For this I'm going to use a STORMHOST silver, and I'm just going to pick up all the edges with this. Just very simple, take a very quick and simple edge highlight on all the steel details. Finally, we have all our glowing parts base coated with pure white, and I'm going to start applying a layer of 1 part warp lining and 3 parts contrast medium over all those details. I will apply this like so, and then I will absorb the excess because I want to build this very gradually. I will also apply this there over all those details. Same here on the cable. I will leave more of this contrast paint towards the both extremes of the cable, like so, and I'm going to absorb a bit here on the middle. Here on his blade, I will apply it in an NMM fashion. I will start dark here, light here, and the opposite way in that section there. So applying it all over it and then pulling it towards that section there. Same here, and here I will do just the opposite. And I will make it pull more towards this side. Our first layer of warp lining and medium is now dry, and I'm going to apply a second one. And again, I'm building up the effect. For example, here on the cable, I'm going to apply it again towards both extremes of it. Here on the coils, I'm just going to apply it here on the top. Same goes for here, and just going to apply it in the recesses around those round bits. I will just keep building this here towards the back and here towards the other side. Don't be afraid to cover a lot with this. We just want the brightest point right there in the front. The rest I will darken it quite a bit. We are at a point where our wall lining is not providing any more shadows because it's reached its limit. And now I'm going to make a glaze using Dark Angel's green, and I'm going to keep on shading that blade and that cable. This is the sort of consistency I'm going for. I'm thinning it down with contrast medium, and I'm just going to apply thin glazes of this in the darkest bits of both the sword, of both the blade and the cable. I will probably do 3 layers of this, taking each less and less space, but we first need to let this to dry. I finished shading my blade and my cable, and I'm going to highlight all the glowing green bits using pure white. I have my white quite thin, and I'm just going to apply a highlight in the middle of each of these spheres here. I am picking the top of each coil, and here on his blade I will do a very thin edge highlight with pure white. Remember, this is quite thin, and don't be afraid, I will tone this down and unify everything, but I need this to be as bright as possible. Don't forget to take this ridge also. And before I forget, here on his cable, I will just do a very thin line, like so. And now I'm going to take Tesseract Glow and I'm thinning it down with Lamium Medium quite a lot into a glaze consistency. And I'm going to glaze this over all our glowing bits. This will pick up the white very well, and it will make all our green layers pop a lot. Just like so. I will do maybe, I don't know, probably 2 coats of this. Don't let it pool, we just want a thin glaze of this over all our glowing bits. Like for example here the cable, and of course his eyes. Again, if it pulls too much, just take it off. I did in the end 2 coats of Tesseract Glow over all the glowing bits, and I'm going to take pure white again, and I'm going to do a last highlight. This is the same edge highlight we did, but I'm not going to do it all around, just in the most prominent bits, like here for example. Tiny bit of white here in the middle, very small dots in the very center of each orb. And with that last step done and our model based, our Necron warrior is finished, and I had a really good fun painting this guy, and it was surprisingly quick. I never timed myself, but this was about half the time of a Space Marine, so pretty quick, at least for me, and really fun to paint. I've said this in the past, but I'm slowly falling in love with true metallic metals thanks to contrast paints, because it's like working with inks but with a much friendlier medium. So guys, I really hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I'll catch you in the next one. Bye! Do you like my videos and want to help me make them? Well, there's several ways you can do that. You can follow me on social media, you have the links to all my social media in the description below. You can also check my affiliate links in the pinned comment of this video. Use those links in your next hobby purchase and help me without any additional cost to you. But most importantly, there is Patreon. You have the link to my Patreon in the description below and in the pinned comment of the video. Patreon helps me do all the cool projects that I want to make and helps me improve the quality of my videos. Don't be afraid, no content will ever be hidden behind a paywall, but it's a nice way to help me and you will get something back for your generosity. That's it guys, thank you very much for watching, and a special thank you to Ben Morin, Gerald Moore, Christoph Moret, Joshua Bohannon, Beldrain, Ryan Mann, Daniel Figueiredo, Kieran O'Murthail, Michael Boye, Charles Armintash, Christoph Domen, G4 Sheeny, Kevin Zulers, Gareth Smith, Richard Kekowski, Leonard Lindemann, Eldrick Edge, Mark Jarvis, Jonathan Ekelum, Dr. V, Manuel Bilela, JT Butler, Dominic Trevizo, Josh Simpson and Shasha Park for being the coolest persons in the planet. Be like these fine folks, join my Patreon and take control.